Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm talking with Anita Gevinson and Mr. George Gruel. Anita wrote a book called My Wild Rock and Roll Life and was the goddess of FM 98. She's here. She was Warren Zevon's girlfriend and confidant, and it's great to have you both here with me. So how you doing?
Thanks. We're doing great. How are you?
Nice day here. It's beautiful weather, and I have power on, so I'm in air conditioning. I'm going to start. George, let me start with you. How did you meet Warren Zevon and this whole story began?
I was living in San Francisco, and it was at the Miyako Hotel because some rock and roll friends that I knew in LA were coming through. And there was a fellow named Howard Burke who worked with Jackson, but then he became Warren's road manager. Mm-hmm. And we ran into each other in the elevator. I said, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And you want a job? And I said, doing what? And he goes, driving a truck and doing equipment with Zivan. And I said, sure.
Right.
And then went, let's see, did the rest of the 78 tour. And then I went and worked at Westwood Music and run by Fred Walke. It's where everybody hung out. Mm-hmm. And Warren came in one day testing the guitar or something. And you want a job? And I said, sure. Doing what? Taking care of me, basically. And we were basically joined at the brain. And I said, yep. And that spun into wonderment after that.
Funny, it's funny. He said the same thing to me. You want a job? No.
Is that really what he said?
I said, what? He said, taking care of me.
I love it.
That's not true. That's not true.
It's not true. Well, you took care of him anyway, you know? Which
that's what I heard.
That's what I've been told.
I could barely take care of myself. I think that was the problem. One of the problems.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. So, when did you guys first meet up? How did you guys meet? Did you ever have any life or know each other before Warren?
No.
He was the Cupid.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
He was the Cupid.
He was the one that brought us together. And
I kind of remember. Tell us that story of how you first met him.
Well, it was important to Warren that I did certain things when I came to LA. There were certain things that I had to do. Mm-hmm. And on the top of the list was to meet his friend George, his best friend George. And he was very proud to take me over there and introduce me to this guy that he just, you could tell, loves so much.
Romance.
You know, it was just a delight just to see them together. They were, you know, forgetting a little bit about how we met him. I think what was really key was when we met him, because I think both George and I met him at a really good time. Not that there were some setbacks and slip-ups and some, you know, bad behavior, but it wasn't because he was being evil. He was an alcoholic.
Right.
But we both met him when there were a lot of sober time and a lot of time where he was, I think, at his best. Wouldn't you say? So, yeah, George,
and a lot of money from the record company.
Yeah, so he didn't have those pressures. Right, no, exactly.
Catered meals in the studio and all that.
Right.
Money was just flowing like water. Money and cocaine.
And the songs were out, you know, he was making, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, some of his best music ever. Mm-hmm. And his performances, if you go back and you look at his performances, his physical performance, nobody was doing that was singing those kinds of songs.
He took ballet lessons. You know?
Really?
Yeah.
I could almost write a song about that.
Yeah. Well, that's Bad Luck Streak and Dancing School.
Well, it's funny because I do that song. I was going to do it at the Z-Con this year, but somebody else had already gotten it. But when I played with Brian before, he wanted me to play that with him. And, you know, we played together at the other Z-Cons. And next year at Asbury, I'm cooking up something good, my friends.
All right.
Well, I think when George and I think back, and I think that was why it was so easy for us to continue to hang out and do this this crazy tour and be together all that time was because everybody was getting along so well, and everything was really good. People like to refer to Warren's time in Philadelphia as some sort of lost weekend, and they talk about John Lennon and May Pang and all this stuff. And let me tell you something, Warren loved being there. He went, George can attest to this, it was his idea. I wasn't even particularly in favor of it. And he moved in there, and it didn't go well for him, but it wasn't because it was I don't know, just time ran out on his sobriety, and he happened to be in Philadelphia when it happened. I think that's more accurate, and I think he wrote some great songs while he lived there.
Sure.
And we had a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So,
tell me, just a good question. Not really a very exciting question, but what are each of your favorite tunes that you still love every time you hear it? Like, what really just, if you hear it, brings a smile?
Jesus Mentioned.
Oh, yes.
Jesus Mentioned. I Need a Truck.
Yes.
All the women's from my bed. And Poor Pitiful Me, of course. I mean, there's so many.
Of course.
And when the lights came up at 2, I got a glimpse.
Yeah. French Inhaler. French Inhaler does it to me every time.
Face was like something death brought with him in his suitcase.
Yeah, I love that line. Every time I hear it, I just go, what a great line. I wish I wrote that one.
Join Me in L.A. I love Join Me in L.A.
Yep.
I love Mohammed's Radio. Mohammed's Radio is just...
Absolutely.
Then there's Play It All Night Long.
Oh, I love Play It All Night Long.
You know what? I love playing that song. I started playing it in the South.
I contributed part of the lyrics for that one. Never got the credit, but I didn't ask for it. He was stuck. I came up with the word jizz.
Yeah.
No offense, George, but
I'm just shocked, George. God Almighty.
No. That sounds like you, but Warren, of course, would want to use that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I love that song. I just think everybody should know that song, and
then we were wondering.
Everyone should Google brucellosis. I just think everything is. Well, yeah.
It's funny. When I moved to Florida and I started playing, we were playing in a Southern rock band, and I pulled that song in. And on New Year's Eve of about 70, I don't know when it was written, I think in 80 or somewhere around there. But when we played it, the place just went crazy because we had a bunch of black people with us, and all these rednecks. It just turned into a riot, and I'm up there singing all the lyrics to it, cracking up, and my band's going, "What the fuck? Who is this guy?" And the rednecks were not having a good time, and
we were afraid to play a couple gigs in Alabama. We weren't quite sure how it was going to go.
I'm sure. I'd imagine that would be scary. The South in general can still be scary, but back then it was really scary.
Yeah, we plowed right through the middle.
Right. So, what? I know I'm sitting here. What is the big, great question to ask you? How about, George? How about your book, the new one and the old one?
Well, you may have an exclusive here. I think I'm resurrecting the old book, but it's in a different format. I found a way to get it produced at a reasonable, the same price as the other one, because those prices are going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I will know in a couple of weeks if it's real, because a lot of people want it. And of course, I have a nice ad for the EPUB. The EPUB's fucking insane. I mean, I don't know anybody that's done. Have you seen it?
No.
Well, do you have a Mac or an iPad?
I do have a Mac, and I have an iPad as well.
Okay, I'll send you a promo copy.
Great, thank you very much.
It's 135 audio clips.
Right.
It's a book with audio.
Excellent.
And a bunch of new stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool. How long did you?
So if I were in your position, Neil, I would the question that I think people ask the most is what Warren would think about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, what he would think about all these chat rooms. What would he think about all these people who
Great idea.
Econ and feel the way they do about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, George, do you have any feelings about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame specifically? That
he'd want to be in it.
That's what I think.
Well, I'm just going to ask you guys, because you're like Paul Charles and I have been talking for a while. Paul was worked with Jackson as an accountant for many years, and he's kind of connected with everyone. And we've been talking about getting him in. He's a member of the Songwriting Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And so we'd like to get him in. I mean, we've been talking about this for 3 years.
Yeah, a lot of people have. I don't really know what the politics are anymore now that Jan Wenner isn't there. His shenanigans may not be part of it. But what I wonder sometimes is how he would feel about the actual being up against, when you have to vote. So you're kind of nominated, but then there's like 12 and only 5 get in. That part I think he might find tedious, and
he'd be a wreck.
Right, he'd love-hate relationship with that. I don't care. I care. I don't
he'd
care.
wash his hands even more.
But once he was in, I think he would be thrilled, because who wouldn't want to be on that list?
Yes. And you know what? It's long overdue. I know the politics at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, in my book, has been irrelevant for decades. I mean,
right, but
the politics.
Exactly. But you still want to be in it.
Absolutely. And there's no doubt he deserves to be there. I mean, even the categories are just so amorphous now that it just drives me out of my mind. I'm like, I like a lot of soul and Motown and rap and all kinds of shit, but
they were going to go live this year for the first time, which I think would help tremendously. I think it has to be live. I was at a rehearsal a couple of years ago in Brooklyn and at the Barclays Center, and I heard it and saw it the way it really was, and then I saw the condensed Reader's Digest sanitized version of it, and it was a disgrace. And you could see all the other stuff on YouTube weeks before. It seemed ridiculous to take something like a live rock and roll performance and a career and try to tame it and edit it and make them sound, the way so I think that would help a lot with the relevance of it. And who knows? But I think it's got to happen sooner. Don't you think, George, someday it will happen?
Yes.
I know this. We can get Paul's thinking was that while Jackson and a lot of the old guard in the LA music scene are still alive and prominent, and they're not getting too old. A lot of people are dying off. So while they're alive, since they were such good friends, we would think they would be good people to call. Because a couple of them are in this song.
I don't know if that's the right. I don't know. I think I would find out who's on the committee.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let Paul check that out, because he's a member and knows those guys well.
Yeah, I don't. If it's somebody that likes him, he'll get in. If he don't, he won't. I think it's that simple.
Sure. Okay. Well, what do you think of the resurgence of the internet and like how the ZCon came together? Tell me your experience with that whole bit.
Oh, it was great. Worked well.
I was shocked. I was really shocked at how great.
What bands are doing. All these people, immediate family are putting out these videos of those guys jamming in their houses, and it's fucking wonderful.
Well, it was great fun. I'd never pass up a chance to play some of this stuff. I'll throw it in all the time, and it's just I grew up listening to his stuff. I'm as big of a fan as anybody else, and grew up playing it. My band always was like, where do you get all this weird shit from? This stuff was really awful back in the 70s, So what was the longest tour you guys, either one, went on with Warren?
We did 6 weeks in one clip in a bus, right?
Yeah.
And you did the 78 tour.
Yeah, but then when we went on the solo tour,
right.
It was Anita, myself, and Warren in a station wagon.
I love it.
And we had an equipment truck and a scaled down crew, but it was good house mixer, good.
Yes, big light guy.
It was circus.
I've heard some of those recordings that people have recorded that are on the internet, and they're great. Some of the shows are very raw and, just like it's like what an acoustic show should be.
It was rock and roll too.
Yeah.
I sure wish I had George with me when we went to Europe. Man.
Yeah.
Because then, at first it was okay because we had a brand new guy, Ron Moss, who knew nothing about us. And he probably would not have taken the job if he,
knew what he was getting into.
If they told him. So he flew to Philly, and we got on the plane, and by the time the plane landed, I'm sure he realized what a gigantic mistake it was for him. And of course, no one knew that Warren was coming without a band. We just decided, unless they specifically asked who's in your band, that we really didn't have to mention it. So we didn't. So he showed up as a solo act, and then Ron left, and it was just me and him, and that was really that wasn't so good. That was not a good idea.
Fasten your seatbelt low and tight, please.
Yeah, that was really kind of weird. But it had a silver lining because after we got done with the tour, we went to we flew to Geneva, and Warren got a chance to spend time with his daughter. We picked her up at school in Chamonix, and we flew back to Philadelphia, and we spent the summer. And then Jordan came and joined us before George and Jordan and Warren left for Hawaii on that tour. So we got a chance. They got a chance to live together in Philly. They hadn't been together since, I think, George, you guys lived with Kim.
Yeah, we didn't.
So it had been.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I went up on the Zerata house. Right,
it had been that long since the kids were together without their moms.
Yeah,
and everybody got along great. And we Ariel turned 6 or 7, and Warren and I took her to the one of those dinner theater presentations of Annie.
Oh right, I bet that was great fun.
It was hysterical. It really was. It was just watching him watch her watch Annie. Was very, it was great. And it was a great summer. We had a great summer. So even though that tour was rough, we ended up, we never even thought about it again because it was so great to have everybody there. And
I bet.
And if you listen to you'll hear it soon, the EPUB, I have the entire clips from every song at the Hawaiian show. And it's right off the house mixer. And it's just insane guitar playing.
Yeah.
Right.
He was in a really good place then at that.
Yeah. Right.
He was with him and you were with him. And
how did Warren think about his fans and fame? He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy. I'm sure he really wanted to make the bucks like, Don Henley and Jackson and everybody. What was his mindset during those periods when he was sober and stuff? How did he deal with fans, for example? Did he like fans, or did some get a little overzealous, or a mix of both?
No, he talked. Yeah. Although he said, this is after I saw him in Seattle. I wasn't working with him. He goes, George, I had the hell scared out of me. There was a woman came backstage and whipped out her tit, and it's got his picture tattooed on it.
Holy cow, you gotta be, I've seen frickin' crazy fans, but.
Yeah. And then we got this, he'd get some fan letters that were just wonderful. One was this woman talking about how the only way she could get off sexually is she cut out the front of Excitable Boy and made it into her mask and made her husband wear it because that's the only way she could get off.
Well, okay, I guess
think about Warren getting this.
All right, let me just say that even though 98% of Warren's fan base
was male,
I would say male, the remaining ones are some strange, I shouldn't say it, but I think we've just met the strangest ones. They can't all be like that, but we did have one that used to stand in Rittenhouse Square and look up at our apartment, and she just used to stand there.
It was a woman?
Yeah.
Yeah, she just stand there and look up at you. It's like you can make a movie like The Ring. The bitch will be climbing out of your TV set.
Well, speaking of making a movie, so I was thinking that Warren's life story, as well as my life story, and the way they intertwined and the way the two different worlds collided and the whole time that was, meaning the 80s. I don't think Warren appeals to the average person. I think all of us included, and I think that's what he would have liked about it, was that there were so many people that got the inside jokes, and also the fact that he did it in a way, he came about it from being very well read. Mm-hmm. Some of the things were very, they weren't stupid jokes. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Clever.
Appreciated people trying to figure out what the lyrics meant. Mm-hmm. And the rest.
Sometimes they meant nothing.
Exactly.
I'm sure.
Well, George, I was saying that I thought French Inhaler, I thought that because Tully's name is Mary, Warren was singing Stamped and Mailed Her, that maybe he thought it sounded like Mailer, and that's why he continued that way.
That sounds good of an explanation. What do you think about that, George?
I don't think about that stuff. I just enjoy the lyrics.
But if you had to think about it, does that make any sense? Is that the way?
So long, Norman. It's just
right.
Yeah.
Maybe that. I don't know.
I never got the Maryland shit at all.
Well, because he never wrote songs. He didn't do the typical always lyrics first or always.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just came from a saying, something you might have said.
He had these wacky cassette tapes that he would make at home, especially when he got a synthesizer. And he would take this new song into the studio. And people go, some of them were a little grating, the synthesizer too much. But Waddy would pick out the nugget and then, boom, make it a song. Just like Stills did with Crosby and Nash, same thing.
Yeah, that's
Waddy just insane.
Yeah, Waddy, right.
Who was his favorite producer that he worked with? Jackson?
I don't know. Jackson with LaDonnie, LaDonnie made everybody great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in the EPUB, there's a page I dedicate to LaDonnie. The NS10 speakers that you see in every studio with a white cone, LaDonnie brought those into the United States first from Japan.
No kidding. That's interesting.
He's the reason they're here.
You think, George, do you think that Warren enjoyed being in the studio?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. He got to wear his new shirt. He and JD were having this fashion. Who can unbutton their shirt? It was just, they both were, the gentle. Jackson had the gentleman boys. JD and Warren spent, he got his name chiseled on entrance into Bijan for spending the most in 1 month. He'd slide across the stage and rip the knees on his $1,000 pants from Armani.
Yeah, he had a great sense of style. He really did. It wasn't just that he had an expensive.
He got it. He was.
He looked great in clothes. He really did.
They could have done it. Vogue or somebody could have done an article about his fashion.
Absolutely. He absolutely could have started making his own gray cashmere scarves instead of going.
Oh, for sure.
I remember the glasses. He used to get them from that guy Manny.
Yeah, down at Four Eyes.
The shop was called Four Eyes, but even when he lived in Philadelphia, he would get his glasses shipped.
Manny did all the rock and roll glasses. The guy was really good. He wasn't cheap, but he was really good.
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. But I think that Warren always had great stuff, like whether it was luggage or all his stuff was very cool. The little bag he used to wear, the black bag. It was very cool. He traveled well. He looked good when he traveled.
Right.
And he was always dressed. My parents loved that about him. Mm-hmm. Because he never cursed. And he was always dressed. And he was and he was such a gentleman.
Right.
And they just, nobody acted like that that was around his age. You know, he really was a throwback in that way.
Right. Who did you think was like his best friend? Was it you or George? Were you just his best friend over the years? I would think you guys had such a long time together that you were really like brothers.
I didn't have as long as quite a few people like Waddy or Jackson or stuff, but he and I clicked in a way that was just, meant to be together.
Absolutely.
It was a surprise for me because I always thought that he and Jackson were very simpatico, and that's why the relationship worked. But they really found a way to make the best of things a lot of the time, but they really weren't always on the same page. They were more like brothers in that way.
Right.
But when Warren was really having some bad moments in Philadelphia, J.D. Souther was in New York making his album, and he and Warren were on the phone, and next thing I know, J.D. shows up and totally changed the mood, totally changed everything. Right. So I realized that for that kind of thing, Warren was much more open to JD coming and sitting there and saying what's going on than he was for anybody else that I ever saw him with. They were really good in that way. And JD was so funny and is so, I don't know, there's something about his personality that's so winning that everybody just loves him. And so it really made everything lighter, and Warren could get back to writing and kind of, and he did that twice. He came in and did that twice. So
they compared clothing.
And again, I don't really get, like, all the tawdry stuff, people dug in that pile a lot, and I don't really like going there too deep because it just seems like it's all been written in the various books. What was just like when it was like good times and you guys say you were traveling, or I'll ask you this, Anita, what was a quiet night the Zivan home back in the day when you guys were just, off the road, so to speak?
Well, we like to go to the video store and rent movies. And I would cook something, meat and potatoes was his thing. Something white, something brown, and something green. And then he'd go in his little music room and make music, and I would do whatever. And we would wear our bathrobes a lot and make tea melts. Sounds like a Sheryl Crow song. But,
right? I love it.
We make tuna melts in our bathrobes. And he didn't have to go out all the time. He didn't like to go to bars, ironically. Just normal stuff. Right.
Well, George, when you guys were hanging without Anita and stuff, what did you guys do when you hang out after a gig? What was your usual?
Strip clubs.
Strip club. Really? I mean, is that the case? You go to the strip club? I was going to say, I wouldn't think it would appeal to them.
They didn't even exist, really, then. It was called burlesque.
Oh, right, exactly. Burlesque. That's some dirty little vinyl or roll of 8mm film in Dad's bottom drawer,
All that shit. I don't know. We just hang. I mean, the house we rented, they're all nice. One up on Mulholland, but then we rented one in Zerata that George Harrison had just moved out of. I mean, back in 1980, spending $2,500 a month for a rental was nice.
That's a lot.
And and a lot of friends would come over. It was like a music house. Ron would come over, or then he wrote a lot, in the night and stuff. And
yeah, he slept a lot during the day.
Right.
Yeah.
And
we did get hopped up now and then. Every night.
You guys were doing a lot of,
allegedly.
It was a time period. It was the time. I mean, I feel bad for people that never got a chance to do cocaine before they started messing with it. And I feel bad for people that then couldn't do a Quaalude, I mean, that was a time, it was a blip on the radar, but it was a great time. And
no doubt.
We had a lot of fun. And for the ones that made it through, I look back very fondly on those times and memories. And I think that's the only reason why, speaking just for me, but maybe for George too, that I think that we do want to talk about a lot of that stuff. It's not just two old people trying to figure out, what we did. I think a lot of people, I was shocked when I started to read in all the chat rooms or whatever you call them these days. That's probably an antiquated term, but in the groups, I was shocked at the questions that people asked were not what I thought. I thought that would be more about music and everything, but it was a lot about his personal life and a lot about the things that they read after reading a book or two. And I just thought it was a shame that that would be the only image they had of this man, because I knew a different guy, and so did George.
Right.
And I'm not saying that guy didn't exist, but not when we knew him.
Right.
We would not have hung out with him. A lot of people would not have hung out with him. People wouldn't have shown up for him time after time after time if he was this monster that was so out of control, that did these vile things all the time. That was a period of his life, unfortunately, but that wasn't who we knew. And that's the only reason why I wanted to get that out there.
He and I went through Europe together, just the two of us. Couple 2-track tapes, and did all the like American bandstand shows in Germany and all over. And it was just fabulous because we had all this time at night, and it was just wonderful.
We had a great time in London.
If you listen on the EPUB, there's a lot of, like, he and I smoking pot in Paris. There's a whole lot of Warren and I laughing on this EP. I mean, it's the real shit. It's just like Hank sitting around.
You're like in the room. If you ever wanted to know what it was like, all you have to do is listen. You're in the room with them, and that's what brought such joy to me.
And one of the best ones, and I don't know why I recorded all this shit, but we're in an airplane, and he's flipping through a magazine, and there's a picture of a happy family picnic. And so he ran with it. That was his family. And this is Betty. And he started naming, and it's just total improv, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, his brain. He was like Robin Williams in that way.
Right.
Quick. You couldn't stop it. He couldn't stop it. And it was just amazing. Yeah, he wrote, when he wasn't writing music per se, he would write stories, a lot of, because he loved Ross McDonald and he would write those types of stories, and the stuff that would come out of him, the descriptions of the character, he really had a lot of, his brain was working overtime sometimes.
He had a great knowledge of the English language.
He did.
Yes. Yes.
That's why he didn't have to curse all the time, because he knew the better word for it.
Right.
I was the one with the limited vocabulary coming from Philly. You know, I was always like fuck and fuck and fuck, and he never. That was not his thing. You know, he very rarely. He even though he was troubled. I'm not trying to say he wasn't troubled and he didn't feel pressure and he wasn't secretly scared out of his mind or whatever. But he wasn't acting out in these horrific ways that I've heard other people describe him. I got to tell you personally, I would have been out of there so fast.
You're right.
Yeah.
I just thought of another wonderful thing when Kim was living in the Zorata house, and Kim was there, and they'd been up all night, who knows, writing and doing drugs and whatever. And they wrote a song, and it's called "Let's Wake George Up and Kill Him." It's something we'll remember. It's something we can do and they sang it to me. No, and the other one that never got recorded was my favorite. Speaking of favorite song, it's called "Riot in a Woman's Prison," and the story goes that the women are not happy, so they take the prison doctor hostage. And then the tagline is, Warren wrote, is, "If you don't give us or meet our demands, we're going to give you the prison doctor back with his balls sewn shut in his mouth." An Excitable Boy, there was also the lyric about rip the arm off and fuck the wound and stuff, which never made it.
I guess that didn't make it past the editor.
No.
I was shocked at how much actually did. I don't.
You play that now and he'd be arrested.
Oh,
I don't
God
remember
forbid.
anybody else being able to get away with that, or a lot of the things that he did get away with. Basically, I don't know why, but people, it would be like, no smoking, but he'd do it anyway. Nobody would say anything, or he just had a way of charming the flight attendant, or Wasn't that the last girlfriend? I'm sorry. Isn't that what happened? Didn't he ask for extra peanuts and then he took her to New York?
Yeah.
Anyway, but no, I'm just kidding. But he was very charming. He could win people over. So they would kind of waive the rules for him, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Which wasn't always a good idea. But he
That's
but when
true.
we were on that tour with all those different bands, the Roskilde tour and everything, and Eurythmics and U2 and Peter Gabriel and Van Morrison, it was kind of like the same people for all 3 days. And by the end of those 3 days, I think everyone had gotten too wasted. And I think that's what happened. Warren was good up till a point when he was by himself. But when he joined that tour, there was just too many people in the hotel having too many parties.
Right.
And that was when that was it. I remember one night, Southside Johnny, I ran into his room and I was like, can I just sit here for like a minute? And he's like, well, sure. And I'm like, well, I'm from Philly and you're from Jersey. So I thought you wouldn't mind, you know, because I just had to get out of the room because, George will tell you, you couldn't help him. You wanted to help him and you couldn't help him. You couldn't make it all better.
Right.
Wouldn't allow that. So.
Well, at one time it did when I took him through detox at home. And he was screaming and shit, and I had to keep fluids in it. He allowed it.
It's a hard thing to go through.
Yeah. You're a better man than I, Gunga Din. I could not have done that. See, I was not the right person at the time in my life. You know, I had my own tragedy, changed me forever, couldn't save my sister, met him a year later. There we are. And I'm, thinking about embracing this whole life that I just got out of, and I never thought that he could conquer. So I never thought that he'd be sober. I mean, I thought, look at his background. Nobody really knew about the program then. It wasn't like it is now. I didn't think that you could drink like that since that age, go away to a hospital for 2 weeks, and, just sing Kumbaya and walk out and everything was going to be better. So, yeah, I just could not imagine doing that. And I regretted it. I felt like I let him down. I really do.
Horse hockey. But there's a picture that, I don't know who I got it from. Somebody. It was in one of the books that Warren had used to, they were his book sale. And Warren would store stuff in his books. It's like, and this guy bought the book and got it. And it's in the book, new book. It's Warren on a putting green putting.
Right.
Warren golfing.
I remember taking him out to the country to visit friends of mine, not knowing that he had this whole nightmare episode that I didn't know that when he left Los Angeles and he moved out to Santa Barbara, I didn't realize what a nightmare that was for him. And he never said anything. So here I am taking him out of Philadelphia, suggesting that we move out to the country. And we get there and he's having this breakdown. I don't know why. And this big black dog comes running out of their house. And I have a picture of Warren with this dog sitting on a step. And it's so out of character, that I just kept it because I thought if I didn't see it with my own eyes, even a dog can shake hands. But I see him there holding this dog's mouth shut because he's so afraid. And I thought, wow, if I had known, I would never have dragged him out there. But you couldn't take him out of his milieu because he got a little, he didn't like
uncomfortable.
Yes, he would get very uncomfortable. But I didn't see any of those massive signs of OCD back then.
Right.
I didn't. When we were on the road, there were a couple of things, but I don't remember ever asking. George, did he ever ask to change a room because of what number it was?
No.
Okay. Yeah. See, I never heard that. And the thing with the Coke, I never saw. He would order food. I never saw him not eat it because of a thing. He loved eating. I used to leave the shows early, get a ride back to the hotel because some of them didn't have room service after 11. So I would go back, order the food, keep it hot till we got back from the show because, we enjoyed that so much, the after show meal.
Right.
But I don't remember any of that stuff happening. But
he was a slob.
After he made chili in the kitchen, I was so happy we were moving, because there was no way we were moving into a bigger apartment in the same building. And I was like, great, because there's no way we're ever going to get the chili out of here. It was such a mess. Yeah, he could really make a mess. Yeah. You didn't know where to step because there were cords and things all over the rug and all over. And he would find things in his pockets, and he would find, pills. Oh my God, pills. You never knew where you were going to find a handful of pills.
That song, Charlie's Medicine. Charlie
we had to have a physician's death.
He got killed, but Charlie worked in a pharmacy, and this doctor was writing scripts, and he'd show up with this fucking baggie full of red pills for Warren, some kind of gorilla biscuits.
Right.
Well, we had a physician's desk reference. Every home had a physician's desk reference.
Yeah, that was required reading in the 70s.
Well, that's the only way you could tell what you were swallowing, because you couldn't Google it. See, that's the other thing. I think, George, I think we could have stayed on the road forever if, the way it was in the beginning, without the cell phone, without the computer, and with him sober, and with us riding around and looking cute and being young. And I just think we could have done that forever. I think going back and trying to live a real life was what was so hard,
But like you're saying, no cell phones. We'd have a pocket full of quarters and ask the bus driver to pull over so I could call the William Morris agency or the hotel or something.
And no one knew where we were.
Exactly.
Right.
It was so great.
Oh,
no one knew where we were. Do you remember stopping at one of the
rest stops?
Warren would come out when somebody recognized Warren, an Asian guy?
Yeah.
That was hilarious. I never thought we were going to leave.
He bought all kinds of trinkets.
Yes. Yeah.
Porcelain monkeys and whatnot.
Yes.
Well, we were in the middle of nowhere, and Warren used to complain that everybody wanted to talk to him, and then complain that nobody wanted to talk to him, within the same minute. And so when he got out and he walked in, I'm sure you didn't know how he was going to react, but he ended up loving this guy.
Yeah.
Because he recognized him, and we were, in the middle of nowhere, middle of the night. But you know what I miss? Those scrambled egg sandwiches. Remember those egg sandwiches we used to eat?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love those.
What do you guys think he would think of today's music business? How did he look at it back then, and what would he think of it now?
I think it'd be all right. He'd love being on the internet. Oh my God, he'd be chatting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He didn't really, he and the record business never really were a good fit anyway.
Right.
They didn't know what to do with him, and he wasn't really radio friendly, as they say.
Yes.
It wasn't until Andy Slater, who was a fan, first, finally, the story I heard was that he used to go to every meeting of that record company, and at the end of the meeting, he would say, well, how about Warren Zevon? And finally, from what I've heard, they said, well, why don't you manage him if you love him so much? And I think that he said, okay.
Right.
And he started doing it. Yeah. And he really understood Warren and got Warren. And I think he was one of the first people in the record business that kind of knew, didn't look at Warren and think dollars. How much can I make from this guy?
Right.
It's amazing how many of his songs are being recorded still.
I know. It's amazing that most of the people that are in these groups are younger than it was years ago. In other words, whenever that was, you and I and he were out on the road, they're younger than that. So they weren't even born when we were doing that, which is the other reason I wanted them to kind of see it through our eyes or hear it from us, because it was totally different than, it wasn't an out of control experience like we were talking about. He never missed a show.
Right.
Very rarely. And if he did,
we got snowed in Albany for 3 days.
Yes, and
he talked the bartender and give him the keys to the bar.
And I remember he had some sort of sore throat one night, but we were there for 2, so he made it up the next night. Yeah. But when we were playing the colleges,
bang bang! I just typed in the list of the shows again.
Wow.
Look, it's fucking amazing that we
It
did
was amazing. And then the small club tours.
Yeah.
They're
fabulous.
The small club tours were so great. We used to go there for sound check, and you could smell that combination of liquor and whatever they were cleaning the floor with.
Yeah, right.
God, I love that. I love that smell. And sound check was always. It was just it smells like victory.
Yes. It's funny you said that. We just watched Apocalypse Now the other night.
If you watch the documentary, Heart of Darkness, that his wife did, I think it's better than the actual movie, but that's just me.
I'm going to look forward to reading that.
It's up for $3.99 on Amazon.
Excellent. We like that budget stuff. Well, I guess I've asked pretty much everything. Let's just talk. Have you read all the books that everybody's done?
I would like to read the one about. I've read Chad's, Mr. Cushion. I would like to read. There's another guy that you interviewed, or someone interviewed on Zivan, and he also sang. Didn't he write a book?
That was Chad.
Yeah, Jeremy.
Okay.
Wait.
I would like to read that book.
James Campion.
Yes, I would like to read that book.
Yes. I haven't read that yet.
Because I didn't know anything about that book. But yeah, it was a little difficult for me to read Crystal Zivan's book.
Sure. In parting, do you think Warren's laying up there, wherever he's at? Is he just having a big laugh about it and waiting on everybody to show up, or what?
He's got a good smirk.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Yeah.
I don't know. George, I think I told you this story. I ran into Jackson at the Mint when the Immediate Family were playing.
Yeah.
And I said, gee, I can't help thinking what Warren would think. And Jackson said, well, the thing is, he's dead. So right. I don't really think.
Right.
That's Jackson. It's wonderful.
I'm like, yeah, there you go. And there you go. So, I don't know. Sometimes the whole thing seems like a dream. Sometimes I think, when the wind blows through the window, I'm like, there he is. Sometimes I think, I don't know, it changes a lot, but, it definitely is unforgettable. I mean, I don't know, days go by. I mean, I've lost people. George has lost people. We loved again, blah, 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 but it's just never been quite the same, I'll venture to say.
Well, I think the world's a more boring place without Warren, for sure.
That's true.
Like, what would he have ended up doing now? Where would you see Warren right now? If he was around, what would he be doing in the music biz?
I think the same thing he always did. I think he would just keep writing.
He'd have a podcast, probably.
He might have a podcast. That would be interesting.
He loved the interaction.
I think he would keep writing. I don't know how many songs he's written, but I'm sure it's I think it's in the hundreds, George.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he would keep writing. I don't think he could stop that, and just finding new ways of recording.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see a whole lot of collaborating. I think he was pretty much a solo thing. I can't see him starting to have a partner, you know what I mean, or joining a band. No, I think he would have just been him. Maybe appearing with some of his pals every once in a while.
Right.
And I can't even imagine him at this age. How old would he be, George?
73.
Wow, I can't even imagine. But
I always told him to respect his elders because he was 5 days younger than me.
Really? I had no idea.
That's funny.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, so we miss him, and we love him, and we love that you love him.
Well, I do too. And, thank you so much for doing this. I always enjoy talking to you guys, and I look forward to next ZCon. Hopefully we'll see you all in Asbury Park next summer.
I'm down.
All right.
I'm there.
Well, George, thank you for the interview, and I look forward to reading your book, the new one.
I'll send it to you in the next 10 minutes.
Oh, cool. Well, that's great. All right,
and
guys.
Then if you can, plug the fuck out of it. The only
I will plug the shit out of it.
I'm trying to get it onto Amazon, and it's too intense. It's a fixed layout interactive EPUB. And I can turn it into a Mobi is what Kindle wants. Somebody said maybe a Kindle Fire could handle it. I don't know. You know anybody that's an electronic whiz, I'd love to chat with them.
I'll ask around in my circle of anybody who might be able to answer that question.
Get the word out. Someone can do it.
Yeah.
Right,
People need to see it. That's why I did it, because it's just...
I can't wait to see it, and I will pump it. And all right, guys, thank you very much. Here we are live with Neil. We're singing with Anita Gevinson, George Gruel, of course. Thank you for watching, and we'll see them again next year. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.